What's up? Welcome back, baby. Welcome back to Reading with Shiloh, man. I'm Shiloh. What's up, man? What's up? This is part 9. Part 9 of Africans in Colonial, Louisiana by Miss GWENDOLYN MIDLO Hall. Man, what's up with y'all? Oh, shit, man. I had some mizan in the tooth, man. I had some tooth mizan. So I was out. I was out because my tooth was out. Oh, my tooth was hurt. My mouth was hurt. Some tooth mizan. Mizan, as my grandmother say. Mizan. You got mizan? I had that la mizan. That la mizan in the tooth. Oh, but I have breath to breathe. So I made it another day. I have breath to breathe and I have all I need to succeed, baby. So it's time to succeed. Time to succeed. And we're going to succeed tonight at starting rowing through chapter 4. Chapter 4 is the Bambara in Louisiana. From the Natchez Uprising to the Samba Bambara Conspiracy. Chapter 4 in the Africans in Colonial Louisiana. Chapter 4. What's up, man? How y'all doing tonight, huh? I hope everybody's doing good. I hope everybody's been well. I hope y'all don't have no mizan like me. And if y'all did have some mizan, I hope y'all got over y'all mizan. You know, all praises to the Most High. My mizan ain't as bad no more. That mizan was on me. Mizan. When y'all come on in, man, be respectful. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Tell your people, man. Shout out here reading shit. We doing shit. We learning shit, man. We trying to be better. We gonna be growing shit, building shit, adventuring, fishing, hunting, doing all type of shit, man. That's the plan. Do shit. Do shit, man. Do shit. Do some shit. So, man. So I'm feeling good enough tonight. I already started doing my workout, but we're going to keep going, man. We're going to keep going with the workout, and we're going to work our body, work our mind, and work our body again. I got some stuff we're going to do tonight up here, man. Hopefully I got enough room. Hopefully I got enough room to do it. I got enough room. I just can't stretch my arms all the way out. Hey, but we're going to get it in. We're going to get it in so the rowing through chapter 4 can begin. I don't think chapter 4 is that long. Let me see, 97, page 97 to page 118. Page 97, page 118. I don't know. We'll see how far we can get tonight in about an hour. We might could break it down into two parts. Hopefully, if we can get that far. If I could at least get to 106, maybe 108. If I could get to 108, shit, nah, 109. Hey, Shalom, I'm in Louisiana, baby. I'm out here. Out here. Mamita. Mamita, mamacita. Mamita. Yeah, if I get to page 108, I think I'll be good with that. Maybe 106. We'll see, man. 106 looks like it's more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, we might could get to 108. We might could get to 108. We're going to start it off. We're going to start off in a minute. But first, we got to work our body, man. We got to work our body. And we're going to try to do something new, man. I've been doing them jumping jacks. And them jumping jacks is all good and dandy. It's all good and dandy. But we got to get some more stuff going, man. I got to get back into the routine of things. My body had been hurt. My mouth had been hurt. Too much reading. Nah. I don't think you could ever get too much reading. But reading is fundamental. So we're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep pushing and succeed. We're going to keep pushing and succeed and succeed. And you have breath to breathe and you have all you need to succeed, baby. All you need to succeed. So I'm going to get on the ground and do this workout, this ground workout, ground and pound. Hopefully I ground and lose pounds. That's what I'm trying to do. Ground and lose pounds. We're going to take this medicine ball here and work it, man. We're going to work some shit. We're going to do 50. We're going to do 50 of them. 50 of these things with this medicine ball, and then we're going to read for about an hour. About an hour. Oh, Lord, the medicine ball. Oh, Lord. Oh. A medicine ball. We're going to go through the legs. 50 through the legs. Let me see, man. Make sure I got enough room. Make sure I got enough room. All right. I got enough room. Let's go. 50 through the legs. 1, 2, 3. Oh, shit. Almost messed it up. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh, I missed it. 14, 15, 16, 17. We got to lose the pounds. 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Oh, get it right. 26. Oh, I'm losing it. 27. 28. 29. Come on. 30. 31. 32. 33. 34. 35. 36. 37. 38. 39. 40. 10 more. I can feel it. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. 50 of them things. 50 of them. I'll work with that. I'll work with 50. I'll work with 50. 50 is a plenty. 50 is a plenty to start. Whew. Man, I need a heavier medicine ball, but that medicine ball ain't no joke. I ain't even gonna lie. That medicine ball is not no joke. It's just a 20 pounder, but 20 pounds is good to start somewhere. You got to do something. If you don't do nothing, you ain't gonna see no change. You must start somewhere. Whew. So we'll do 50 more at the end of the reading, or 50 more at the end of the session. And we'll keep going with the work your body, work your mind, work your body. That's the routine we're trying to build, or that's the routine I'm trying to build. And I've been pretty good at it so far. You know, besides the days that I miss from reading, I've been doing pretty good on the routine. So we're going to keep going on the routine to help build it. Sometimes you can build a routine, they say in 14 days, sometimes a month. Sometimes they say it take 293 days. I don't know how many days we've been at it, but hey, we're trying to build a routine. We're trying to become better. Better. So let's get started. Part 9. This is part 9 of Miss GWENDOLYN MIDLO Hall sea of pages that we're going to be rolling through. The Africans in Colonial Louisiana, man. We're in chapter 4. Chapter 4 is the Bambara in Louisiana, from the Natchez Uprising to the Samba Bambara conspiracy. Here we go. The Bambara, arriving in Louisiana in large numbers after 1726, first encountered Indians as their fellow slaves. The first slaves in French Louisiana, held from the earliest years of colonialization, were Indians. Now, Iberville had strongly opposed Indian slavery, attacking the British traders for inciting wars to obtain Indian slaves. But his younger brother and successor, Benneville, was less scrupulous. Now, Iberville, these are actual places here in Louisiana. Iberville, I didn't realize that the name of these places consisted with, or were actually from, some of these things, as it seemed they are. While proclaiming that they protected the Indians from British fomented slave raiding, the French bought, sold, and even exported Indian captives from Louisiana to the French West Indies. Now, as we have seen, Bonneville was eager to develop a slave trade with the French West Indies, exchanging 2 Indian slaves for 1 African. They wanted a 2-for-1 deal. Now, although the metropolitan authorities prohibited such a trade, some Indian slaves were exported from Louisiana to the islands. The export of Indian or African slaves from Louisiana was specifically outlawed in 1726, but the export of Indian slaves from Louisiana to the French islands continued on a small scale. Now, encounters between African slaves, many of them recent war captives and Indian slaves who knew the land and had ties with Indian nations in lower Louisiana, severely undermined discipline among slaves of both races. After New Orleans was founded, escaped Indian slaves remained in and around the city, killing and eating cattle belonging to the settlers. And within a few years, the incursions of the Indian slaves became more organized and dangerous. In 1726, the Attorney General complained, and for a long time, large bands of Indian slaves have joined together and deserted and hanged out around the city well armed. These desertions are always accompanied by thefts from their masters, who are thus deprived of their arms as well as their slaves, putting their lives at risk. And since they have a good supply of powder and balls, we are convinced that they are planning a severe blow against us. As increasing numbers of Africans arrived during the 1720s, Africans and Indian slaves, sometimes owned by the same masters and sharing the same fate, ran off together, stealing food, supplies, arms, and ammunition from their masters. They often were well armed and raided the settlers for more supplies. And an Indian slave who had escaped and been recaptured revealed the existence of a settlement named Desnatopoli, where there were 15 other fugitive slaves, both African and Indian, and they were armed with 11 muskets and ammunition, with which they expected to defend themselves if attacked. Now, the next month, another fugitive Indian slave was interrogated, and he had left 2 years earlier with a group of slaves belonging to Sieur Tisserand. He had convinced the female Indian slave to leave with him, and she had robbed her mistress before departing. And they joined a part of the fugitives across Lake Pontchartrain, but later left them. And when he was captured, he had only potatoes and fish left to eat. By 1728, Governor Governor Pierre complained that the search for runaway slaves had been neglected and that these runaways were assembling in the city. And he pointed out that once the runaways had a place of refuge, the colonists could no longer keep them, and the colony would be lost. And a tax of 30 pounds per slave was levied upon the masters and converted into merchandise to present to whomever brought back a runaway slave. Now, the Indian nations, all the way to the Natchez, were asked to arrest all runaway slaves, whether Indians or blacks, and were advised that those who gave refuge to the blacks or helped them to escape from the French settlements would be considered enemies of the French, and that those who arrested the runaways and returned them to the French would be considered their friends. Now, French officials offered an attractive reward in goods valued at 160 pounds. That included 2 muskets, 4 lengths of Lombard clothes, 2 blankets, 20, they probably had measles on them damn blankets, smallpox and shit. 2 blankets, 20 pounds of balls, 4 shirts, a pound of vermilion, mirrors, knives, and musket stones for each slave returned. It's like they was going to Walmart. I got that Amazon in for you, baby. Muskets and knives and mirrors. What the fuck they gonna do with mirrors? Mirrors. Now, Pierre, believed that these rewards to the Indians and the punishment of the runaway slaves would produce 2 important results. First, the no longer dare run away, And even more important, the French would no longer have to fear any understanding between these two peoples, understandings that would be harmful to the colony. And on the contrary, if the Indians attacked the French, they would have no better defenders than the blacks. And so the French reasoned in using the Indians to keep the blacks in submission, and they would have nothing to fear from the Indians. And the highest priority of French policy was to sow misunderstanding between blacks and Indians, making their differences forever irreconcilable. And with this objective in mind, they forbade Frenchmen living among the Indians to have black slaves, and forbade French trading among the Indians to bring blacks along with them. Now, Pereire came out strongly against Indian slavery for a number of cogent reasons. First, he argued that the Indian nations often went to war in order to take captives to sell to the French. And though it could be argued that wars among the Indians helped the French maintain control of the colony, which it did, they also offered the opportunity for the English to penetrate the closest Indian allies of the French. And furthermore, he argued that Indian slaves were useless except for hunting and fishing, and were impossible to use for skilled trades or for cultivating the land. See, they rendered little service and ran away from their nations or to other neighboring nations, and bringing black slaves along with them and developing ties with the blacks that could be harmful to the colony, where they were more blacks. And Paris's worst fears were realized in short order. Now, there was a long history of conflict between the colonists and the Natchez Indians. And in 1723, Benneville fought against and defended the Natchez to take revenge against them for killing some French settlers. Now, there was already at the time a free black among the Natchez who had been instigating them against the French and joining them in raids against the Indian allies of the French. And according to the peace treaty between Benneville and the Natchez were to bring in, dead or alive, that free black who had taken refuge among them for a long time, and had made seditious speeches against the French, and had fought alongside the Natchez against the Tunica and the Tamara. The Natchez reported that they could not bring him in alive. He had been hiding in the canes since the French arrived, they said, and when any of them approached him, he resisted. And the Natchez chief, Stung Serpent, brought in his head on November 26, 1723. That boy's name was Stung Serpent. Now, when the slave trade from Senegal intensified between 1726 and 1729, the Company of the Indies was pushing to establish a prosperous tobacco colony as its Natchez settlement and the present site of the Natchez, Mississippi. Many of the newly arrived Africans, many of them, no doubt, Bambara, were sent to Natchez. And these African slaves played a prominent role in the devastating massacre of the French settlement at Natchez on November 28, 1729. That's something that needs to be looked up. That is definitely something that needs to be looked up. Let's highlight that. The French massacre. I wonder how many they killed. We're going to see. Maybe they'll say it. Devastating massacre of the French settlement. Whoever had this book underlined it already, but it's definitely something to look up. At the time of the massacre, the settlement consisted of 200 Frenchmen, 82 French women, 150 French children, and 280 black slaves. And before beginning this massacre, the Natchez assured themselves of the support of several blacks, including those of the White Earth Concession and two of their Commodores, slave freemen, who told the other blacks that they would be free if they supported the Natchez. And these slaves who refused to support the Natchez were threatened with being sold to the Chickasaw along with the French women and children. And contrary to the historical myth that the Natchez intended to incorporate the French women and children into their tribe, Pereire reported, based on eyewitness accounts, that the Natchez held these women and children in order to sell them. That's right, sell their ass. Now, assured of the cooperation of the vast majority of the American slaves, Natchez Hunting parties simultaneously visited the homes of all the white settlers and asking to borrow guns for hunting and offering to repay the settlers with corn, fowl, and deer meat. The French settlers gave up all their weapons and in return for a promise of food, and they were thus totally and peacefully disarmed by the Natchez, who attacked them with their own arms. Now, when the massacre began, the Natchez outnumbered the French 2-1 in every French household, and the Natchez party entered the house of Chepot, the commander of the settlement, with chickens to trade, and his officers decided to put them out. But the officers made the mistake of bending down to pick up the chickens before throwing out their unwanted guests. This last gesture of greed or hunger put the finishing touches on the Natchez settlement. And as the officers bent down to pick up the chickens, the Natchez chief gave orders to fire. Some of the blacks at Natchez supported the French, and aside from the 145 Frenchmen, 36 French women, and 56 French children killed during the massacre, Madame Commodore of the blacks at White Earth was also killed, perhaps because he was considered dangerous and unreliable by the conspirators. And 3 blacks escaped from Natchez and arrived in New Orleans on December 3rd, 1729. They informed Pereira that they had seen the heads of the French officers and employees lined and up opposite the heads of the French settlers. Let's mark that down. It said they massacred, aside from 145 French men, 36 French women, and 56 French children killed during the massacre. That was a good little massacre. Out of the 200, they left about 55 men out of the 200 men that they had. Now, 3 blacks escaped the Natchez and arrived in New Orleans on December 3rd, 1729. And they informed Pereira that they had seen the heads of the French officers and the employees lined up opposite the heads of the French settlers. And it was reported that the Natchez spared as many French women as possible during the massacre, and the surviving French women and children had several black men and women with them, and perhaps loyal domestics, and they were all kept in 2 houses, and where they were carefully watched. Now, the French military position was desperate, and French settlers, voyageurs, and priests were being killed throughout the colony. And Governor Perrier wrote, "Since December 2nd, 1729, each news is worse than the other, and the French are being killed everywhere without being able to help each other, because we are in much danger, as we have as much to fear by assembling together as by remaining at our post." And on December 15th, we sent a Pirogue armed with 20 men, including 6 blacks, to bring powder to Illinois country and to pick up all the voyageurs found along the Mississippi River. Now, panic seized the French settlers of New Orleans, and the Chouacas, a nation of 30 men below New Orleans, caused our settlers to tremble, and these made me decide to have them destroyed by our blacks, which was carried out promptly and secretly. And these examples made by our blacks had held the other little nations below the river in respect. And if I wanted to use our blacks, I would have destroyed all the little nations who are not at all useful to us and who can, on the contrary, push our blacks to revolt, as we have seen from the example of the Natchez. Now, hesitating to arm more blacks, Pierre resorted to aiming and arming the few French he had in the city. Now, the French and the Choctaw attacked the Natchez settlement on January 27, 1730. And 50 to 100 blacks and 54 French women were recaptured by the Choctaw. These blacks, who were not captured, fought alongside the Natchez, and preventing the Choctaw from taking their powder and giving Natchez enough time to enter the 2 forts. Now, the blacks' role was decisive in preventing the total defeat of the Natchez, and the French and their Choctaw allies had not expected to have to fight the blacks as well as the Natchez. Now, Delahaye, militia commander of 40 volunteers, mostly from Point Capee, reported that the French troops behaved as if they were going to a fair and not a war. And these savages defended themselves desperately, and our troops attacked only with great timidity. They came out of their trench, passed the post I occupied, and ran away after having abandoned their arms in order to run faster. Dusty foots. The captain of the port of Laurent expressed the most reasonable and objective appraisal of the performance of the French troops in Louisiana. And it seemed to me that these soldiers are good only for guarding military posts and are not used to warfare in the woods. And all the grenadiers of the Europe would make few conquests given the size of the concession. Now, the only means to assure it is to incite other Indian nations against the Natchez and our enemies, encouraging them to declare war by this means work towards their destruction. And the game is general and known by everyone for this remote country. Now, some blacks fought on the side of the French, and thereby winning their freedom and laying the basis of the institutionalized black militia. And the 15 blacks who were armed by the French and accompanied their expedition against the Natchez behaved with surprising valor, wrote Pereire. And if these soldiers were not so expensive and so necessary to the colony, it would be better to use them than our soldiers, who seem made especially for Louisiana, and they are so bad. And Attorney General Fleury, Fleur, F-L-E-U-R-I-A-U. Fleur, I know the first part is Fleur. Fleureyu, moved by the massacre at Natchez, urged recourse to every corrective measure and endorsed the plan of freeing those blacks who, by report of the officers in charge, proved loyally useful to the upper French post. He proposed a militia company organized among selected blacks for instant call against the Indians as necessary, and freedom had already been promised certain black volunteers in the wake of the Natchez affair. Now, Fleury ordered that the promise be fulfilled and subject to relevant clauses of the Code Noir, which is the same code that they had in Haiti. They had the same code, the Code Noir. I still don't know all what the Code Noir existed of. I know you couldn't marry and you couldn't have certain property. I know that's part of it, but I still don't know the whole of the code. Certain subject to relevant clauses of the Code Noir, evidently those referring to emancipation for service to the state, he attached a list of names of candidates for emancipation. And in 1731, a year and a half after the Natchez Indians and their African and Indian allies rose up against the French settlers, Pereire wrote, "The greatest misfortune which could befall the colony and which would inevitably lead to its total loss would be a union between the Indian nations and the black slaves. But happily, there has always been a great aversion between them, which has been much increased by the war, and we take great care to maintain it." Oh, I bet you do. And to this end, 3 of the most active black leaders who sided with the Natchez had been turned over to the Choctaw and burned alive with a degree of cruelty, which has inspired all the Negroes with a new horror of the savages, but which will have a beneficial effect in securing the safety of the colony. Now, when the French, the Choctaw, the Tunica, and a contingent of 15 African slaves recaptured by the Natchez settlement, some of the Africans fled with the Natchez and others were captured by the Choctaw. Alabama Mingo, the Choctaw chief, drove a hard bargain for the return of some 50 black slaves they had recaptured from the Natchez. And in March of 1731, a French officer went to a Choctaw settlement and met with 3 of these blacks, who claimed that they would like nothing better than to return with him to Mobile, but that they did not wish to be brought there by the Indians. And when the officers asked why, they replied that the Indians had made them carry heavy loads, had badly mistreated them, and had taken all their belongings, even their deerskin shirts. And one of these three blacks had a tomahawk wound in his head. Ooh, tomahawk wound on his head. And the French officer was informed that there were still 32 blacks held by the Choctaw, including 6 black women who belonged to the Company of the Indies, and 18 other slaves who were privately owned. Now, 4 slaves belonging to the company and 3 privately owned slaves still had died. And this same slave informed the officers that he was at the great village when the Choctaw chief arrived and urged the blacks there assembled to go to the Chickasaw, saying that they would be better off with the English than with the French. And the Chickasaw chief offered to accompany them to the English, and the blacks refused to go. And the Chickasaw chief left very discontented. And when asked why they ran away when they saw the French coming for them, the blacks replied that the Indians told them constantly that all those blacks who were retaken by the French were burned alive when they arrived in New Orleans, and they were afraid. And they suggested that if the French were to bring with them a slave they had recaptured to convince the other blacks that they would not be burned alive, they would return gladly. And when the Natchez acknowledged their defeat at Red River in 1731, they raised a white flag and sent an Indian who spoke a little French to negotiate. The French informed the Natchez that before discussing anything else, they had to send them all the blacks who were in the fort, and which they did at once. They sent 19 black men and 1 black woman, and the Natchez claimed that 6 other blacks were out hunting with several Indians and that the rest had been killed. Now, St. Denis, commander of Natchez, retook 6 blacks when he defeated the Natchez, and 3 of them gave themselves up, saying they had no master except the Company of the Indies. And he distributed the other 3 among the settlers at the post until they could be returned to their masters. And one of them claimed that he belonged to Champinil, and another to Quiote, both of whom had been killed at the Natchez massacre and had left no heir. The third had been paid for in full, and St. Denis claimed that this slave for himself as war booty. He sent the few slaves, evidently Indians, whom the Indians gave to him, as a present to the Spanish in order to remove them from the area and from the French colony. And the black slaves who sided with the Natchez, as well as those taken and held by the Choctaw, greatly complicated French efforts to drive a wedge between the Africans and the Indians. Pierre urged that they rid themselves entirely of the blacks who had lived for a long time among the Natchez, who had taken them from the French, and among the Choctaw, who retook them from the Natchez. And they were not at all badly treated by the one or the other. And they had returned with the spirit of laziness, independence, and insolence. How dare you not be slaves after y'all been free for so long? How dare thee? The comptroller for the Company of the Indies complained that the Choctaw had held the company's blacks for 18 months after they recaptured them from the Natchez, and that the governor had made a big mistake by putting these returned slaves among those of the company. The returned slaves let the other blacks know about the freedom that they enjoyed among the Indians, going hunting and cultivating the land only when they felt like it. Oh, nigga, man, we did what we wanted to do. Man, fuck all this. Man, I like it with the Indians, man. Man, I go fishing, hunting. Man, ain't nobody telling me nothing. I grow what I want to grow, when I want to grow it. Africans who had lived among the Natchez and the Choctaw did in fact maintain ties with Indian nations, wishing to drive out the French, and many of these slaves were Bambara belonging to the Company of the Indies. And upon their return, they plotted with the Natchez, the Chickasaw, the Illinois, the Arkansas, and part of the Miami to coordinate an uprising among African slaves in all the French settlements, and with attacks upon the French by these Indian nations. And during the winter of 1730 to 1731, Pierre ordered the French officers living with the Choctaw to organize a party of 300 men to cut a wedge between the Natchez and the Chickasaw. But this maneuver failed. And then he ordered the officer to enlist the Choctaw to declare war against the Chickasaw to help them hold out until more aid from France arrived. But his plans were foiled when the Natchez and the Chickasaw were made overtures to the Illinois, the Arkansas, and part of the Miami, as well as to the black slaves in the French settlements. It's that's very interesting. It's very interesting to know that the names of these places are names of Indian nations. The Illinois, Arkansas, Natchez, the Miami. Who would have thunk it? That's definitely not something that's taught in school. That's definitely not something I don't remember being taught in school. But his plans were foiled when the Natchez and the Chickasaw made overtures to the Illinois, the Arkansas, and put the Miami as well as to the black slaves in the French settlements. The Indians sent to New Orleans one of the blacks they had with them to tell the blacks there that they would be free and that they would have everything they could wish for with the English, who would take good care of them. And this black was a Bambara of a nation which the others did not understand. And he recruited all the blacks of his nation. The uprising was scheduled to take place on June 24th, 1731, but the conspirators were not yet ready, and it was put off until June 29th. During this delay, the plan was uncovered by the French, and all the whites from Point Capit to Belize were to be massacred, and all the Bambari had joined together to free themselves and take possession of the country by this revolt. And the other blacks in the colony who were not of the Bambara nation, the Bambara nation, were to serve them as slaves. And it was reported that 400 Bambara slaves were involved in this conspiracy. And French officials did not wish to deepen the investigation because of the damages that would be caused to private individuals if they lost their slaves. Pierre questioned a black domestic slave in New Orleans who had entered into the conspiracy, and she had been told that the conspirators had agreed to take the church when everyone was at the parish mass and to set fire to several houses in the city to disperse those who had not been taken in the church. And according to Pierre, the conspiracy was proven, and French officials killed several of the conspirators by breaking them on the wheel and hanged one woman involved in the affair. The owners of the executed slaves sought to be compensated by receiving a slave from those belonging to the Company of the Indies. And Pierre later expressed some doubts about the reality of the conspiracy, but he stated that if it was indeed real, it could be explained by the revolt of the Indians, whom the blacks saw massacring the French every day, and by the small number of troops they knew to be in the country. And the comptroller for the Company of the Indies believed that the slaves belonging to the company had plotted to revolt and assassinate the French because of the influence of the contingent of blacks who had stayed for 18 months among the Choctaw after they had been recaptured from the Natchez. The revolt would have succeeded if the affair had not been revealed by an indiscreet black woman who told her friend that she would be named Madame Pierre, and the black who, in anger, threatened to make war against the French. Now, all the principal leaders of the conspiracy were to have taken place, and even the names of the commanders, majors, captains, officers, and storehouse guards. The leaders were tried and found guilty, and in order to carry out the execution of the principal leaders and the woman, all the settlers had to be armed. Now, the version of this conspiracy published by Lepage de Prats director of the Company of the Indies in Louisiana, is a bit flattering to him and his role in the uncovering it. And none of the existing documents mention him at all. And his report appears to be a composite version of the several events and places him in the center of the developments. But it is more concrete and graphic that some of the drier documentary accounts, and perhaps not too much less authentic. According to de Prats, in 1730, it was actually June 1731, and a wary African slave who wanted to eat her lunch returned to the headquarters of the Company of the Indies in New Orleans from the brick foundry where she worked. And a French soldier needed wood for his fire and demanded that she go get it. And she said that she was tired and refused to go. The soldier gave her a brutal slap in the face, and in anger and defiance, she shouted that the French soldiers would not slap blacks much longer. I bet. And several French bystanders seized her and had her brought to the governor, who ordered her imprisoned and interrogated. She insisted that she spoke only in anger and that there was no conspiracy. Now, de Prats claimed that he told the governor, Monsieur, I feel that a man who is drunk and then a woman in anger are more likely to tell the truth than in any other circumstances. Let's mark that shit. Let's mark that, because that right there, boy, that ain't the truth. That ain't your baby. That's why you ain't the daddy. Monsieur, I feel that a man, let me do it with the red too. Let me mark it with the red too. Monsieur, I feel that a man who is drunk and a woman in anger are more likely to tell the truth than in any other circumstances. He went to the slave quarters of the plantation of the king when the slaves were normally asleep, and brought with him a young Negro who belonged to the colony's surgeon and probably to interpret from Bambara. They found one hut lighted up, and listening outside, they heard a voice say, "We must not involve others until 2 or 3 days before the coup, and because they might betray us." "I spoke," said another voice, "to so-and-so, upon whom we can count for sure." And de Prats was extremely shocked to discover that it was Samba, his first commodore, who spoke. And after arriving in Louisiana as a slave, Samba had won the confidence of de Prats and had become commodore of the slaves of the Company of the Indies and interpreter before the Superior Council in cases involving Bambara slave. Now de Prats was further dismayed to hear next the voice of his second commodore saying, "I spoke this morning to so-and-so, of whom I am very confident, and he told me that we should not speak so soon to the others." And de Prats described this plot as a betrayal from people of whom one had no distrust whatsoever. Now the Negroes planned to get rid of all the French and establish themselves in their place, taking over the capital and all we owned. The two other, I don't see what's wrong with that. Y'all did it. Y'all did it. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. The two other slaves present said that all 8 of them should say nothing until the return of those who had gone to the Illinois, where there were Negres who had many relatives and friends who they could perhaps recruit, and thereby winning over many others. They agreed to return the next night at the same time, and de Prats could identify 6 of the conspirators, but he wanted to identify the other 2 before making his move. And they returned the next night after 10 p.m., Both commodores were there, and the Pratts recognized the voices of two others. One of the slaves who had been absent the night before said that they should keep their number to 8 until harvest time, and then they could win over many others. Now the Pratts isolated the conspirators, sending each on different work detachments, and then he then sent for them one by one and had them put in shackles. And while the rest of the slaves were eating lunch, Samba was sent on an errand that took him past the prison, where the soldiers grabbed him and put him in irons. Now the next day, the prisoners were tortured by burning to force them to confess their crimes, their plans, and their accomplices. But they refused to talk or confess, and Samba and his alleged accomplices were tortured again to no avail. Now Samba Bambara had been an interpreter at Gollum along that Senegal River and traveling between Gollum and the French trading post of St. Louis at its mouth. He was evidently on good terms with his employers, and on January 3rd, 1720, 50 pounds was advanced to one Niobo against the balance of 126 pounds owed to their interpreter, Samba Bambara. And at the same time, Samba Bambara asked permission to visit his family in Senegal and then returned to Gollum. The director of the company asked that the permission be granted, and if the director of Gollum could do without him for a while, and by 1722, Samba had established a home in St. Louis, where his wife lived, but she turned out to be fickle, and Samba sought the help of the Company of the Indies to force her to respect her marriage vows. Shit. What is that, in 1722? You can't get that. In October 1722, Samba asked his director to write to his superior demanding that he stop the marriage of Samba's wife. And Yiran Galin to the merchant. Samba wanted her and a captive woman she owned chased out of St. Louis if she persisted in her infidelity. And he sent his oldest son to St. Louis to make sure his request was attended to. And according to Bambara customary law, a husband can repudiate a wife, but a wife can never repudiate a husband. And he has a right to force her to return to the conjugal domicile and resuming his role as interpreter after he arrived in Louisiana. He apparently helped obtain mitigated sentences by interpreting what was most favorable to the accused. And the Pratts employed spies and did research on Samba's background. And he claimed that Samba had been the leader of the revolt in Senegal and that had cost the French Fort d'Arguin, and that when M. Pierre de Salvert retook the fort, one of the principal articles of the peace treaty was that Samba be sent to the French colonies in the Americas as a slave, and he was, according to the Pratts, sent on l'Annibal, where he plotted to cut the throats of the vessel's crews and take over the ship. But the officers were warned in time and had him and all the male slaves put in irons until they reached Louisiana. Now, none of these allegations against Samba Bambara finds documentary confirmation. We're gonna get to the next paragraph, and that's gonna be it. Get to the next paragraph, and we'll stop there. Detail supports that of the loss of Fort d'Arguin that do not implicate Samba Bambara. And there was a revolt of the Moors who turned the islands over to the Dutch, and some of the Bambara defenders of the fort finally saved themselves by climbing over the wall. Now the garrison reduced to 20 men, lacking food and water, and most of them suffering from scurvy, surrendered to the Dutch. And the records for the slave trade voyage of l'Annibal in 1726 are the most scanty for any slave trade voyage to Louisiana. The treaties with the Dutch were not signed until 1727. And if Samba Bambara did come to Louisiana on La Bull, he had already arrived when the treaties were signed. And there is no mention of Samba Bambara in these treaties. And he did, however, obviously get into some kind of difficulties in Senegal because he was in fact enslaved and sent to Louisiana. That boy Samba Bambara, conspirator at large. So we'll come back next time. Man, we don't have that many pages yet. I could actually. I think I'm a whole lot. I kept going. I went further than what I was going to read initially. But yeah, I think I'll stop there anyway. I think I'll stop there. We still got 1, 2, my bad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. About 7 pages. We got about 7 pages left. 7 pages left before we finish chapter 4. And I think I'll be able to finish that one pretty quickly. That one probably won't take an hour. But that'll be in part 10. We'll come back and finish off chapter 4 in part 10. Chapter 4, the Bambara in Louisiana. Chapter 4. Let me see the full name. Chapter 4, the Bambara in Louisiana, from the Natchez Uprising to the Samba Bambara Conspiracy. Samba Bambara doing his thing. That boy out there moving and maneuvering like Toussaint, or like Pichon, or some of them Haitian boys. They doing their thing, man. And we have rode pretty good. I rode pretty good. I rode pretty good tonight. I stumbled a little bit, but I ain't stumbled a lot. I stumbled a little bit. So the rowing session was pretty good for Miss GWENDOLYN MIDLO Hall, Sea of Pages, the Africans in Colonial, Louisiana. And we'll come back, man. That was that. So we worked our mind. Worked our body. We definitely worked our mind. Now let's work our body one last time. Let's go on the floor and do this grind, man. Let's do this medicine ball grind. Do 50 more. 50 more on the medicine ball. Man, I'm so glad my tooth mizan ain't what it was the last couple of days, man. I'm so glad I could speak freely. My face don't look as swollen. I could actually see a dimple. My face don't look as swollen. I still feel it. It's not necessarily my tooth, it's my gum. But hey, whatever. That stuff I've been doing, it's been working, man. It's been working. All praises, man. All praises. Oh man. Well, let's get on down. Get on down. Down. Let's groove tonight. And get our body right. Let's go ahead and try to get these 50 in, man. Get these last 50 in, and then we'll be out of here. We'll be out of here for this, and I'll keep going. I'm going to keep going in my room. I'm going to check on my boys. And then I'll keep pushing. And do some other workouts. Oh, man, hold up. I got to get rid of my gut. I'm still working the kinks out of this shit. So I'm going to have to take it slowly. Oh, shit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Let's take this off. Let's take this shit off. 13, 14, 15, 16, 26, 27, 28, 29. Gotta control that shit. 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50. Oh man. 50 of them things. 50 of them things. Whew. Hey man, them things be making me sweat, man. I could assure you that. Them things make me sweat. Which is what you want. Sweating is what you want. Sweating helps to get rid of the burn the fat. Get the fat and the pounds gone in the places you want them gone. Whew. I wish doing exercise could help my mesan in my tooth, but hey, we keep pushing, man. It's supposed to rain tomorrow, so hopefully my garden gonna get a good dose of good rain. Some good rain. I already got my beans was coming up. My tomatoes been shooting up, man. Tomatoes been shooting up. Corn been shooting up. Hey, my stuff is starting to take off, which I like. All praises to the Most High. Stuff taking off. So we're gonna see an increase here soon. My cucumbers already starting to flower. My boys been eating the blackberries from off that's been vining out there. They just grow naturally. They've been eating strawberries out the strawberry plants. Not many, but they still been eating them. They like to get out there and they see, but they be excited when they see everything growing, man, and see the different things growing and going. But all praises, all praises. Appreciate everybody that stopped by, liked the video, commented on the live. Hey, like, comment, subscribe, share. Tell your people, man, we out here reading shit, doing shit, learning shit. We're gonna grow some shit, build some shit, have adventure some shit, carve some shit, fish, and hopefully kill some shit. And we're gonna keep assassinating books one by one, man. One book at a time. One book at a time. One day at a time, one session at a time, one page at a time, one chapter at a time, one paragraph at a time, one sentence at a time, here a little, there a little, line upon line, till we seek and find the treasures that was left behind. And see how we can use them and apply them to our life. And be better for ourselves and better for those that come after us, man. And we got to keep pushing because we have all we need to succeed. We have all we need to succeed as long as you have breath to breathe, baby. We got all we need to succeed, baby. I'm out here. I'm out here, big Lowski. Trying to be Slim Lowski. Slim and trim Lowski. Slim and trim SHILO. Yeah, one day at a time, though. We got to keep pushing, man. We got to keep fighting the good fight. Keep fighting the good fight to be right. And sometimes it be hard, man, but we could do it. We could do it. I think I'm going to go eat me some oranges or something. Some oranges. Or maybe even some plums. I might go cut me up some plums. I think that's good to eat at this time. But anyway, man, hey, that was part 9. That was part 9 tonight. Part 9 of the reading. We did our thing. We did our thing. We succeeded. We have succeeded in the reading. So now let's keep pushing on, man. Let's keep pushing on through the book, and we'll have this book assassinated, hopefully in no time. We're moving pretty nicely, I think, through the book. Look at that, we read all this. We still got not all this to read, because we're gonna read the conclusion. Yeah, that's it. We still got that much to go. It's about double. We still got about 2 times of what we already read. We're in the hundreds right now. We got 270 pages. 270 pages left to read. We'll keep pushing. We'll keep pushing to 270 pages, and that'll finish the book. 270 pages will finish what I'm going to read in this book. Because the appendixes at the end is just a bunch of dates, and it's more. It's not that it's not important, but it will be important for somebody who is trying to actually examine this book by the numbers, because it's a lot of numbers and dates to say what boats came from where, how many people they had along upon the boats, how many left when they left, how many arrived with them. So it's a bunch of numbers like that. Like I said, it's important, but it's not important to the reading that we're going to do. So there's no reason for me to read through all those. So if anybody wants to grab a hold of the book, The Africans in Colonial Louisiana by Miss GWENDOLYN MIDLO Hall, they can check that out for themselves. But we're going to just read all the way through the conclusion is what we're going to read through. And like I said, we've got 270 pages left to read through that. So, but we'll keep going. We'll keep going, rowing a little bit at a time until we get to the destination. X marks the spot. X marks the spot is 380. That's the X marks the spot. And that'll be the 28th book assassinated. The 28th book assassinated. So I hope everybody has a wonderful night, man. Keep pushing, man. Keep pushing. Health is wealth. Get your body right. Get your mind right, man. Let's get better. Let's become better people, man. Better people. A little bit at a time, one day at a time, man. Passover is around the corner in a couple of days. Well, Friday for me. So I'll be out there celebrating I'll be here celebrating Passover, so I probably won't read that day. I probably won't read Passover day. Well, we'll see, man. I'll probably do it. As long as my mouth ain't hurting, I'll do Rise and Scripts for sure, because I can definitely do that on Passover. I can definitely do that one on Passover. But as far as, we'll try to see how far we could get in this week. And keep on pushing. So, man, that's Shalom, man. I'm Shalom. That's it for the night, man. Shalom, everybody. I hope y'all have a wonderful night, man. I'm out here. Shalom out.